Meet Detective Joel Cunningham. Joel is about to kill a drug dealer and his partner, but not for revenge or some personal vendetta. No, Joel's life depends on it. He's cursed, and the only way to survive is to pass the curse to someone else by killing in front of a witness. So his plan is to wait for the dealer's partner to show, ambush him before he reaches the door, then kill him in front of the dealer inside. This, he believes, will transfer the curse. Killing someone in front of a witness creates a clean handoff, at least that's what he believes. The dealer, horrified by his partner's brutal death, tries to avenge him by shooting Joel. His instincts kick in as he fires back, killing the dealer, and with him, Joel's chance of survival. Panicked, Joel hears someone stumbling into the room. He swings his gun around and finds Louis Fragoli, a teenage user who wasn't supposed to be there. Joel freezes, his plan crumbling, and bolts out the front door just as the dealer's crew arrives. Desperate, he rushes back inside, slams the door, and scrambles for an escape. Locking himself inside a room, he kicks the AC out and crawls out the window, fleeing through the backyard. Moments later, Joel's lifeless body lies sprawled in the street, struck by a truck as he attempted to escape. Across New York City, Sky Riley is trying to rebuild her life. Once a pop star with a golden voice, she's now haunted by a tragic car crash that killed her boyfriend, Paul Hudson. The tabloids have labeled her reckless and unstable, and though tonight marks the start of her redemption tour, Sky feels fractured. Her nights are filled with nightmares of Paul's bloodied face as he lay there dead in the car. Pushing her to focus, her manager insists she rehearse. Sky complies, but every song feels hollow, like another piece of her slipping away. Adding to her misery is a persistent, searing pain in her lower back. In desperation, she contacts Louis Fragoli, an old high school acquaintance, for some painkillers, a choice she'll come to regret. When Sky arrives at Louis's apartment, he opens the door looking agitated. Yanking her inside, he throws her against the wall and holds a sword to her throat, screaming. Sky reminds him about the pills, referencing his earlier text.
Your text said to come over!
Confused, Louis checks his phone, panicking as he realizes he sent the message, but has no memory of doing so. Eventually, he calms down and retreats to his room to retrieve the pills. When he doesn't return for quite some time, Sky cautiously goes to find him. Just as she reaches the doorway, Louis bursts out, his gaze fixed on something behind her. Then, falling to the ground, he starts choking. As Sky rushes to help, he stops and starts to smile. A slow, unnatural smile that stretches his face grotesquely. Paralyzed with horror, she watches as he grabs a 35-pound weight plate off the floor nearby and smashes it into his own face, over and over, until he finally collapses, passing the curse to Sky as she vomits in shock. Dialing 911, she hesitates when she spots the drugs on the table. Fearing the consequences, she hangs up and stumbles out of the apartment, leaving behind the horror, or so she thinks. The next day, standing in front of her dressing room mirror, Sky receives a chilling text from an unknown sender. "Were you at Louis's apartment last night?" Her heart pounds as she glances nervously around the empty room. When her eyes return to the mirror, she freezes. Louis is standing behind her. She spins around, but no one is there. Looking back at the mirror, she gasps as Louis forces her reflection to smile. Desperate to regain her sanity, Sky reaches out to Gemma, a friend she hasn't spoken to in over a year. She leaves a voicemail, and Gemma eventually calls back. After some awkward small talk, Sky invites her over, and Gemma agrees. When Gemma arrives, Sky recounts the terrifying events at Louis's apartment. Seeing how shaken Sky is, Gemma decides to stay the night. The next day at rehearsal, the curse manifests again when Sky experiences a horrifying hallucination. In the middle of her performance, Paul Hudson's sinister, grinning face flashes before her eyes, causing her to stumble and fall, breaking her leg, the shin bone grotesquely jutting out. Everyone stops dancing to check on her as she screams out in pain. But when she looks again, she finds her leg is perfectly fine. Embarrassed and rattled, she accuses the backup dancers of tripping her and storms off stage. Backstage, Sky spots Joshua, a stagehand, leaving her dressing room. As he passes, he stares at her with the same eerie grin she saw on Paul and Louis. Panicked, she rushes into her dressing room to find it ransacked. Enraged, she confronts Joshua, but he denies everything. Unable to control her anger, Sky snaps and screams at him.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you, Joshua! Fuck you!
Later that night, Sky gives a speech at a charity benefit. As she reads from the teleprompter to introduce the next speaker, the curse takes hold. The teleprompter displays her deceased boyfriend's name, Paul Hudson. In shock, she watches as a man rises from the crowd and walks toward the stage. It's Paul, wearing that same menacing smile. She screams at him that he isn't real and to go away, but he continues to move forward to the stage. She closes her eyes as he gets closer to her, in an attempt to make him go away, and when she opens them, Paul is gone. As the audience stares at her in confusion, an elderly woman approaches to help her off stage. As she does, the curse makes Sky mistake her for Paul, causing her to jump. In her panic, she accidentally knocks the woman off the stage. After the incident, Sky sits backstage, paralyzed by shock, as her managers argue about her mental state. As Sky relaxes at home after the benefit, more messages from the unknown sender flood her phone, using her full name and warning her of danger. Terrified but curious, she finally replies, "Who is this?" The response comes almost immediately. "You're not imagining things. Everything you've seen is real." A statement that definitely grabs her attention, causing her to agree to meet the sender in a public place. Arriving at the agreed-upon place, she walks into the bar where she meets Morris, a man who has spent years studying the Smile entity after it took his brother. Morris explains that the entity feeds on trauma and fear, passing from victim to victim through witnessed deaths. Simply put, when finished feeding, the curse will kill her in front of someone else to continue the cycle. Wanting to stop it before it hurts anyone else, he proposes a dangerous plan: to temporarily stop her heart and trick the entity into thinking she's dead, severing its connection. Though hesitant, Sky agrees to the plan. That evening, while preparing for the next day, she turns her closet light on and freezes in terror. A large group of random people all staring at her with the same evil smile. Stumbling backward as they move toward her, she falls and scoots up against her bed. She looks slowly towards her bedroom door, turning back to find that the group has closed the distance between them and her by more than half. Sliding towards the end of the bed, she readies herself to make a break for it. With her body surging with adrenaline, she glances at her bedroom door one more time before she bolts for it. Beginning a game of cat and mouse, with one of them even reaching into her lamp to break the bulb. As they close in on her, she makes an attempt to reach the front door. She falls short as they grab her, tossing her around in an intricate dance. That ends with them slamming her head against her piano, knocking her out. When Sky awakens, she's in a rehab facility with her mother by her side. Though Sky is clearly unwell, her mother insists she must continue her career, especially with the tour approaching. As their conversation grows tense, the curse takes hold again. Her mother's face twists into that horrifying grin before she shatters a mirror, grabs a shard of glass, and begins stabbing herself in the neck, even gouging out her eye. Sky runs to the door to escape the room. She stops at the door and looks down in terror. The bloody shard is in her own hand and she's covered in blood. As Sky looks back at the room, she sees her mother lying dead on the floor. Panicking, Sky throws on a hoodie to cover the blood and tries to slip out unnoticed. But Joshua spots her.
Is that blood?
And begins shouting for help. Surrounded, she grabs a security guard's gun and fires a shot into the air. One of her managers pleads with her.
Sky, what are you doing? Think about the tour.
Sky's only response is silence
Fuck the tour!
as she bolts out the exit. Out on the street, Sky runs into her friend Gemma. Desperate for help, she hijacks a car at gunpoint. Gemma taking the wheel as the getaway driver. On the way to meet Morris, Sky explains the plan. But then her phone rings. The caller ID shows Gemma's name. Confused, Sky answers it as the real Gemma says.
It's me. I got your voicemail. Sorry. I haven't been to your place in a year.
It then dawns on her. The Gemma in the car is just a figment of her imagination, conjured by the curse. Snapping back to reality, she finds herself alone behind the wheel. Sky eventually arrives at the abandoned fast food restaurant Morris has secured for their plan. Handing him the gun, she makes him promise to shoot her if she starts smiling. They make their way inside as Morris outlines the procedure. They'll use the walk-in freezer to lower her body temperature, buying time to stop her heart and restart it before brain damage occurs. As she lies on the freezer table, Morris places a thermometer in her mouth and steps out briefly to gather supplies. Left alone, the curse seizes its chance. Above her, Sky sees a chilling vision of herself from the car crash hanging upside down above her. Unbuckling her seatbelt, she falls onto Sky, knocking her to the floor. The vision grabs her by the hair, dragging her across the room. slamming her into the wall as it says,
I've been waiting for you for such a long time.
As Sky screams for Morris, the entity informs her that
Morris, I can't help you anymore. It's just you and me. I like wearing your skin.
before throwing her across the room. Climbing on top of her, it pins her down screaming. As it forces its thumbs into her mouth as if we're trying to tear her jaw apart. In desperation, Sky bites down, severing the entity's thumbs. Seizing the syringe meant to stop her heart, she drives it into her own neck, shouting.
Fuck you.
Everything begins to go fuzzy and starts to fade as if the plan is working, but then all of a sudden everything comes back into focus as the cursed version of herself says.
This is unreal, Sky.
Sky looks down at her hand and realizes there is no syringe. The curse has been toying with her mind this whole time. Suddenly, Sky finds herself not in the freezer, but on stage, performing for thousands of fans. The camera pans across the screaming audience and back to her. Across the stage, she sees herself, smiling that sinister, unnatural smile. The cursed version digs its nails into the scar on her stomach, tearing it open to unleash a grotesque, otherworldly creature. The audience watches in horror as Sky collapses, choking and gasping for breath just like Lewis had. But only Sky can see the hideous being as it advances. Sky falls to her knees screaming in sheer horror as it then reaches out with its monstrous pink arms. Working its thumbs into her mouth slowly, it begins to tear and rip her face apart at the jaw. Sky then stops choking and stands up wearing that same evil smile. She grabs the microphone as the camera turns back to the stunned crowd, who then starts screaming as Sky begins smashing it into her own face. Blood splatters across the stage as she continues until she collapses, lifeless. The camera cuts to the horrified crowd, their collective screams echoing as the curse begins to spread like wildfire. Leaving us to think, will there be a Smile 3? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.